August 15, 1945. The world stood still. A nation once seen as a powerful empire of the East, now standing on the brink of defeat. The news of Japan's surrender to the Allied forces reverberated across the globe, but the true reason behind this momentous decision remains shrouded in mystery to this day. Was it the relentless military pressure? Was it the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Or was there a more complex web of political, economic, and social factors at play? Today, we uncover, to understand why Japan surrendered, we must first understand its journey through World War II. At the outset of the war, Japan was a growing imperial power, expanding its empire in Asia with a brutal military campaign in China, and soon after attacking the United States at Pearl Harbor. The surprise attack on December 7, 1941, was a wake-up call to the Allied powers, particularly the United States, who were not prepared for a war of this scale. Japan's initial success was largely due to its 9 naval power and surprise tactics, but their greatest mistake was underestimating the will and industrial might of the United States. As the war progressed, Japan began facing severe setbacks. The Battle of Midway in 1942 marked a significant turning point in the Pacific War. The United States had successfully broken Japan's naval code and dealt a crushing blow to the Imperial Navy. Japan's expansion started to falter, and by 1944, the Allies had regained the initiative. Japan's leadership, especially under Emperor Hirohito and the military high command, was increasingly divided. The earlier victories were followed by costly campaigns and a desperate overextension that drained resources. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 are often seen as the pivotal moment that forced Japan to surrender. But what was the true impact of these bombings on Japan's decision-makers? Were they the ultimate factor, or merely the final blow in a series of defeats? Both cities were obliterated in seconds, but what made these bombings even more terrifying was the fear of more bombs to come, coupled with the devastation of their military resources and the blockade of Japan's ports. Japan was already on the verge of collapse. The bombings amplified their sense of urgency, but it was the Allied blockade and the inability to continue fighting that ultimately led to the surrender. While the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are remembered as decisive, there was another critical factor that pushed Japan towards surrender: the Soviet Union's sudden declaration of war against Japan. On August 8, 1945, just days after the Hiroshima bombing, the Soviet Union launched a massive invasion of Japanese-held Manchuria. The Soviet Union's entry into the war was a game-changer. Japan had been hoping to negotiate peace with the Soviets, but their surprise attack shattered that hope. Suddenly, Japan was fighting a two-front war, one with the Allies and the other with the Soviet Union. Amidst the devastation of war, the decision to surrender was not just military, it was political and social. By mid-1945, Japan was on the brink of collapse. Food shortages, economic ruin, and widespread disillusionment among the populace were taking a toll. The Japanese leadership faced intense internal pressure. The emperor was pivotal. In a rare intervention, Hirohito sided with those who wanted peace, urging his government to accept the unconditional surrender demanded by the Allies. This decision, however, came with great resistance from some hardline military factions within Japan. On September 2, 1945, Japan's formal surrender was signed aboard the USS Missouri, marking the end of World War II. But the real reason Japan surrendered is far more nuanced. It was the combination of relentless Allied military pressure, the devastating impact of the atomic bombings, the Soviet invasion, and internal political unrest. In the end, it was not just the threat of military defeat, but the realization that continuing the war would only lead to the destruction of Japan itself. Today, we remember not only the sacrifices of those who fought in the war, but also the difficult choices that shaped the course of history. The end of World War II marked a new beginning, not just for Japan, but for the entire world.